So here they are telling Trump, oh yes, we'll stop doing lawfare against you and your people, and then now they're billing that with the basic fine.
¡Puta!
That's what it is, unofficial fine. They are telling Trump, we're going to stop our attacks on your supporters and you, and now they think Trump, if they don't busy, that he won't learn that they've done this. So in my view, they need serious sanctions from the White House. If this isn't about me, I'm tough. This is about this saga. Everything I've told you is even worse than I'm telling you. The insanity of what they've done and the persecution would take days because they had 4 court-ordered that my company had to pay for. And then if the money didn't come in, we wouldn't make it through those investigations. So I tell listeners, hey, buy our product. We've got to pay to be investigated. 4 different investigations, forensic accountants looking for dirt. They had the IRS audit me for a year. We got a $4.3 million tax return back. The IRS says we never do this. Went into bankruptcy. That overpaid $4.3 million in 5 years. So I tell my CPAs, pay over. I know because I don't have a target. So there are 3 years of investigation. I got a $4.3 million check back. And none of it was true. And then even the New York Times last year had to say, well, it turns out Jones had meager resources and never really had any. It was all lies.
Yeah,
it was all lies I did anything to. It was all lies I made money off of. It was all lies I had all this money. And the point is last night, the Connecticut Supreme Court said we're not even going to hear your appeal, and which is ironclad, abuse of process, all the rest of it. Texas, the judge.
I
mean, the cap is at $5 billion. She said, I don't care about the Texas cap. I'm doing 45. The change is 49. They just don't care. And it's the same in all of this lawfare. Just like a judge found Trump.
You never did anything. You never broke any laws. They would have indicted you. Like, this is all so hallucinogenic. It's so crazy.
Well, imagine it's like I'm their chew toy, and they just chew on me.
But your crime, look, I just want to refer you to the very first moments of this conversation when I pointed out once again for the 100th time, you called 9/11 in detail before 9/11. So that is like, just from my perspective as an outsider, that's like the defining fact of your life. That's the first sentence of your obituary. No one did that, only you. That fact
¿Qué pasó?
is responsible for everything that is.
Pero si no puedo atacar. No sé qué pasó ahora, boludo. Ahí está.
He showed me the conversations with high-level FBI that said they're investigating. He's going to come back on the show, I think, tomorrow or Friday. Famous whistleblower. He read the documents, and we got a lot from it. He explained. I mean, this is like terrorist designation.
No sé qué está pasando, boludo.
I've had a full espionage, counter-espionage, trying to find something for 10 years.
So where's the DOJ? I mean, this is a test for the new Department of Justice. Brought in on the explicit promise to end the corruption, stop using our justice system, my ancestors helped build, and yours too, as a political army mobilized against domestic.
¿Qué está pasando, boludo? Que no me anda.
Don't do that. It's not a Tantan Makuta to the FBI.
Parece joda, culiado.
Can they help you? Are they helping you?
Parece joda, boludo.
Trump, cut and dry, had the same stuff done to him. He's the only person on a wider scale.
No, sinceramente no entiendo.
You'll hear him say it's unbelievable, it'll take a long time, it's unbelievable. I've studied the cases of you. It's the same kind of crap. A judge in New York finds him guilty, doesn't give him a jury trial. I mean, it goes on and on. So what they've done to me, they want to do to you. But if you want that, pull the sweater apart. They think because of the demonization of what they said I did to kids I didn't do, that the Republicans will be scared to ever defend me.
That's for sure.
When in truth, it's like the Mendez brothers. People found out what they went through. They learned that they'd all been lied to about that. Well, this is like that. This is like what the story you've heard, folks, from start to finish, isn't that. They saw I was famous. They saw I was big. They tied me to Trump and they raised hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars off of me. Got Justice Department money. Had show trials. Just put out all this stuff I didn't do on record.
No.
And then now are not just trying to kill the Second Amendment using these poor dead children who have God rest their souls, but the First Amendment as well. So this is outrageous, and it's a bellwether showing that Paul Weiss, that big Democrat law firm, one of the top ones, would literally tell Trump, okay, we'll stop doing political persecution. We admit to it. They confessed to lawfare against him and his supporters, his family. And then they're still doing it to me, and they're billing the money they said that he'd pay in me. So it's a sick joke. They think Trump won't learn about this.
¿Qué pasó?
And at the end of the day, I just want it to stop. And look,
¿Está bueno o no?
we've survived so much. People say, oh, they were going to shut you down here, they were shutting you down there.
No sé, está pasando algo raro, man. El beta de mierda este juego del orto.
It's in the news they kicked us out or try to kick us out in May of last year. There was a bunch of other stuff that happened.
¿Por qué?
My big deal is I'm not going to give up because they've said we want to get the name InfoWars, we want to confuse it and have chupacabras and Bigfoot, and we're going to act like we're Alex Jones. They claim they own my X account. Musk had to sue, get involved, and have to back off of that. The Democrats in their filing in bankruptcy 6 months ago said that the amendment against slavery,
¿Qué pasó?
13 to 14, 13, doesn't apply to me. Actually, you can read it in Bloomberg from the filing. They said he is a special type of person. And so just like Prince signed away his rights to a record company for his name and his music, I never signed away my rights. So they're saying they own the name Alex Jones. In this court cover, they say they own the name real Alex Jones. They're saying they own all my catalog of material, even though it's always been free to air, and it's my political views, and it's open. They can't do that. I can write a book and publish it to the world and say it's free. Somebody can't sue me and get a bankruptcy letter and say they own a book I gave away copyright free. My show is owned by the world, but what is it they don't want? It's because my older shows, going back 30 years, are ultra green. They're not evergreen where they stay the test of time. They get more and more. And so the system knows that those clips are getting hundreds of millions of views from them, where I lay out and predict hundreds of subjects and what's going to happen. And then I explain those.
So that intellectual property is listed.
They are preposterously, this is new law. They think off of demonized Alex Jones, they say this, they can set a precedent to not just censor you, not just take Tucker Carlson off the air, and they said you're the next target, literally. See the clips from CNN, MSNBC, that they then take your identity, which under the prohibition of slavery, and the prohibition against slavery in the Texas Constitution, all the others, you can't take someone's name, you can't even take someone's tool under state law in Texas. But no, they are saying that they own the name Alex Jones.
And they own your archive of content.
Yes, and they say that they want to twist it and make fun of it. They had the Onion owner with the Everytown Bloomberg representative on this. They bet Bloomberg paid for it.
The new Onion owner is just an intel guy.
Absolutely. From MSNBC.
I'm very aware, yes.
A censorship operator. That was his job.
Yeah, who has literally no sense of humor at all. He's the most humorless drone working on behalf of entrenched power, like in the United States, and he's running the comedy site. it's like the Babylon Bee. It's also fake.
And he's the MSNBC version of Brian Stelter.
Oh, I'm aware.
Well, I know you're the exactly. So what I'm saying is it's a constellation of operatives, corporate, media, government, Justice Department, trustees, all of them, and they just like an army believe they're still going to beat America.
Oh, I know.
And they see me as a populist, firebrand folk hero. They said that themselves, and they want to silence and destroy that person so they can then take the identity of that and turn me into Satan. So,
meanwhile, Adam Lanza is the guy who murdered all those children is totally forgotten.
Yeah, and I almost apologize. I don't really talk about this a lot on my own show. It's just come to a head today, and I'm very honored you let me run on and on. But, I mean, folks, this is your country, your world. This was done. What I've told you, 10% of it, okay? I mean, this is an incredible scandal. The law firm that confessed to Trump to try to destroy him illegally with lawfare. I said, don't worry, sir, we'll do $40 million of good work, non-political. Half of that in a filing last week is me. They have gone and filed that half of our $40 million is what we've done to Alex Jones. I mean, come on. I mean, look, I don't care what happens to me. I just hope Trump takes away their national security clearance because they're not going to stop what they're doing, and those other law firms know exactly who they are.
I agree. And you'd love to talk to the person who negotiated that deal and see if he's aware of it.
Oh, I wonder who that is in the White House.
Yeah.
Maybe they should be looked at a little bit.
Yeah. So,
wonder what they got.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm just speculating here. That's why we need to investigate because I mean, you know this in racketeering laws they passed. If the mafia says, oh, you better hire my cousin and pay me 10% or something might happen to your grocery store, and then they burn your grocery store down, they start investigating, they learn how the criminal networks operate. The mob boss doesn't say go burn it down. He just says, yeah, that guy's not paying. And they all want to mount my head on the wall. Like you've got, that great deer mounted on the wall up there. They want Alex Jones's head on the wall as a symbol to scare everybody else. I mean, they said that in the courthouses and on the courthouse steps, they said, send a message to everybody else, these patient zero.
Yeah.
We're going to take him off
Shut
the
up
air
and obey, yeah.
and destroy him, and we're going to scare every one of these other Americans to keep, I mean, literally, it's like in Bug's Life when the head grasshopper says, yeah, we got all this grain. Why are we going to go beat up the ants? Because one little ant stood up. He goes, yeah, one little grain doesn't hurt. But he goes, but if they all stand up, and he pulls it and it floods them. He goes, if those little puny ants outnumber us 100 to 1, and if they ever figure that out, it's over for us. That's why we're going back to kill that ant.
That's exactly right.
And that's it. So I'm just the ant in Bug's Life.
You are, but it hasn't worked. And so I want to make a prediction, because I just want to be on tape saying this. I'll say it again even more clearly this time. And of course, I hope I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong. But I do think a lot of the really crazy, bitter, ethnic hate that you see on social media is fake. It's people are saying it don't mean it. I think it's like, the Klansmen you'd see marching, and you're like, there are no Klansmen. And you're like, what? And of course you find out that it's fake, and it's designed to convince people that there's like a lot of roiling ethnic hatred that doesn't really exist, and that's a predicate.
A Patriot Front.
Exactly. It's Charlottesville. That's happening online right now, and I know that it is. And I think that at some point, I pray I'm wrong, but there's going to be an act of violence, ethnic-inspired violence, of hate-inspired violence, actual hate, like killing people, and I really hope I'm wrong, but I feel like this is real, and that event will be used to shut down free speech on social media.
100...
Because...
Hola Laura, ¿cómo estás? Buen día. ¿Cómo anda eso? ¿Qué planes? ¿Alguna novedad ahí con Adam, el entrenador y esa pelea? Bueno, no, para que se quede tranquilo, Adam. No, no haríamos nada raro. Ni cerca estaría doblándose algo. Y ya este año cayéndose, me parece que tampoco casi nada, ¿no? Ya de la última vez que estábamos esquiando, yo creo que este año lo va a agarrar mucho más rápido. Más con la bota nueva, todo. Me vas avisando. Te mando un besito.
¿Viste el nivel?
Sí.
Is that is the threat. And you saw with TikTok, like, oh, we need to ban TikTok. China owns it. Oh, nothing to do with China. It had everything to do with opinions that the people in charge didn't like being expressed there. And it's like, we're just going to, and the Congress went along with it. But if there's an act of violence and innocents are murdered, and I pray that doesn't happen, because I hate that above all, but it has happened, and I feel like it could happen again. People say, and a lot of good people will go along with it, just like they went along with the censorship of you and the destruction of your life, because they were told, like, he's bad. He had something to do with murdering children. And then people just shut down. They're like, I don't know. Alex Jones has something to do with murdering children, so whatever they do to Alex Jones, like, is fine.
And I can't tell you how many times in front of my family people walk up and they go, you killed those kids. Exactly. And I'll always go, really? I did, huh? And why am I walking around? And then just like, well, you know what you did. But what you said is so important. The last ingredient is the false flag on a big illegal alien demonstration or a black church. Because the Democrats keep saying, Trump's coming to kill the migrants. We got to rise up.
Yeah, or something else like that. But where innocents are murdered by a crazy person. Or maybe an actual crazy person used, or whatever. Or maybe it just happens organically. Maybe if you stoke enough ethnic division online, it's clearly bad. I mean, there are people who have, views that are, are mad at other ethnicities. I mean, that's real, okay? But there are also big actors who are not real. They're doing it on purpose.
And we know who they are.
Yes, we do know who they are.
And for strategic reasons.
I don't want to get involved in all that filth, but
let's just say we've seen the documents separately.
100%. And they're stoking this stuff, and maybe it just organically inspires someone to commit murder, a mass murder. And again, I just pray, as someone who hates all violence, to say it again, I pray that's not the case. But
let's just say this. The people they're mainly attacking are the ones financing. It's the oldest trick in the book, Hegelian dialectic, and so just be aware of that, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and I just don't, and I think and the only reason I bring that up is because I worry about it every day.
I do too, because that's the next big move.
Free speech is the foundation of a free society. Without it, it's not a free society. You're a slave. If you can't say what you think, you're a slave. It's really simple. And we don't have slavery in this country. It's a free country.
And when it happens, I pray it doesn't. That's the next move. So we're predicting this so that there's enough eyes and ears on it and enough people watching so they don't pull it off. Because that's the thing. Everything I used to predict basically came true because the globalists were still in power. They're so disorganized, have so many problems now. A lot of times when we're able to get out ahead of things, you and others and Trump and Joe Rogan, we're able, and Elon, the huge voice, second only to Trump, we're able to disrupt what they're doing, and enough people see through it. So if it does happen, they try to stampede us into blaming whoever it is. Oh, the Crooks guy, he acted alone. Well, this will be some right-wing Trump supporter with a MAGA hat.
100%.
He'll get killed by the SWAT team.
He was inspired by hate online. Therefore, you're not allowed to have, legitimate opinions or your own opinions. And, God can decide whether they're legitimate or not. But if you're a free man, a free person, you have a right to say what you really believe. Period. And that cannot be encumbered, or else you're a slave.
Absolutely. And we get back to the spiritual battle here. I just want people to know that my lawyers just told me, I put speaker with them. They said I could be shut down within 2 days, 2 weeks. They are coming to shut down InfoWars. We've survived so much, like a long boxing match. People are like, oh, yeah, right. No, this is very, very real. This has been very, very serious. And so, for now, people can find me on X, Real Alex Jones. But that part doesn't matter. People understand more and more how things work. All of your voices are so important. All of you sharing this interview, sharing the other great work Tucker's doing, all the courage he has and others have to really put it all on the line. We haven't even talked about Iran.
Well, give me your 5 minute. I mean, that I should say. I think this interview is going up tonight. We're going to try to get it up in a few hours, but that's such a dynamic situation. Steve Witkoff apparently is meeting directly with the Iranians, which I think is such a great. It's a blessing. But and I hope for the best. But give us your 5 minute overview. Like, what is that, and where's that going?
Well, Iran's plan B for the globalist. And Iran's got its issues and its Shiite militias and all that. I'm not lionizing the globalists.
Puta, boludo.
local temple run.
¿Dónde estás?
Acá, campamento.
Sí, pero... Ah, mira, muy chulo. ¿Lo ves?
Sí,
Mira. ¿Has usado este hechizo alguna vez?
sí.
¿Qué hace?
Tenés que poner las piedras de guía.
¿Qué?
Las piedras de guía tenés que poner ahí.
Es una piedra de guía.
Son las piedras para acceder al mapa ese ya cuando llegues a nivel alto ese. Al mundo ese.
Ah, pero no. Esto no vale para los objetos normales.
No, ese... Yo nunca pude con los objetos normales, lo probé miles de veces, nunca nada. Lo único que me funcionó son para las piedras guía. Que tenés dos piedras de un nivel 1, pum, te mejora nivel 2. 3 de nivel 2, nivel 3. Solo eso.
This isn't.
Don't eat anything colorful.
¿Dónde está, boludo? Está bien.
Winter prevails.
Glacial Cascade is a cold area attack that Frozen Locust. Tempest Bell must Ice Strike. Charged Star.
Como una pasiva.
Mierda. ¿Qué le voy a hacer? ¿Qué sé? No sé.
Oh, you're not. But they've been isolated. Israel has knocked out their proxy forces in Lebanon and in Gaza and in the West Bank. And Netanyahu is extremely unpopular. He's been indicted, and he said he doesn't want an investigation in January. He doesn't want an investigation of October 7th until the war is over. But then he never he's going to have the war be over. So I'm not even against Netanyahu. I'm not against Israel. I know most people in Israel don't war with Iran either. But he's been trying to drag us into war since 9/11. That's how long he's been around and in power off and on. Into this, and they have the most ballistic missiles in the world. What it is 4-1, 5-1, 6-1 to even the Israeli anti-missile defense system. Israel, as you know, only has 3 big cities. They will get blown off the map by this. Conventionally, even if Iran doesn't have nukes and uses them, and the word is they do, Israel will nuke Iran, and then all hell's going to break loose. And in most scenarios, India and Pakistan start nuking each other. Saudi Arabia's got nukes. There's a lot of other countries that have nukes that people don't know about. You don't want even a limited nuclear war, because in most big threat assessment war games, and Tucker's an expert on this, he can attest to it, he talks to the experts, it breaks out. Kind of like your neighbor, has the Black Plague. You might get it. Or your neighbor, has got syphilis. God forbid you have sex with them. I mean, this is a lot worse than syphilis. This is a lot worse than TB. This is really dangerous. And Iran does have proxy forces in Europe and the United States that Biden let get in. And they really do have some of these sleeper cells that are here, that if this does go to full war, they can cause some major problems. And different foreign intelligence agencies are famous for spoofing Iranians and Saudi Arabian terror attacks. They could easily stage a big false flag to get us into a war with Iran.
I'm aware, yeah.
And they're also, the Russians have warned, and before they did, I warned, of attacks on nuclear power plants in Ukraine and Russia, try to blame Russia. Ukraine's done that, been caught. Ukraine and NATO tried to blame Russia for the Nord Stream pipeline. How laughable is that? Of course, I heard this information has been proven, that obviously it was the U.S. government with NATO. I mean, hell, even Biden said, we'll get rid of the pipeline if you invade. So the globalists are very reckless. Again, 50% chance, depending on instead of they started bombing Russia would nuke, they still rolled the dice. So we need really cool heads here. This is not like going into Iraq twice. This is not like going into Libya. This is not a cakewalk. Even for people that love to, buy a bottle of bourbon and sit back and get drunk watching, a war like so many sick people do. This is the main threat to civilization. And I mean, Tucker, you really have all the connections. You travel the world. You cover these summits.
I don't know anything other than I think that people in charge of a bunch of different countries are like reckless on a level that's without precedent in the modern era. And I don't think they're serving their own people, by the way, leaders like that. It's not just like, you've got a bellicose leader who's threatening war or whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean the people he rules are being served. He's putting their lives at risk. Our leaders have put our lives at risk for no good reason. And so, I'm hardly an expert in anything. I'm just an observer, and it's just also obvious. And I'm really worried about is you get this sense that there's like a spirit of dullness or fantasy. Maybe it's connected to living digitally or something. But like smart, aware people are no longer smart or aware. They're sort of sleepwalking through this incredibly dangerous moment, and they don't even acknowledge any of it. And like, what is that?
Well, that was the description I was going to use.
There's like a mist that settles over all of us, and like, we can't. It's like,
Yo soy 48.
Awake. What is that?
Well, that's how I describe it. We're sleepwalking into Armageddon. The Bible calls it a spell.
That way.
Medically, they would call it a trance. And since the advent, I say that sarcastically, of television, and everybody gathering around it, people are way more highly suggestible.
Sí.
Most people are closer to a near dream state or daydream state pretty much all the time. You go to a movie, so everybody kind of drooling. and I've never really had a lot of suspended disbelief. When I was a kid, I was always analyzing things.
Me too.
And so I guess that's a gift. Also, it's kind of torture. It'd be fun to just be able to be mindless sometimes. But yeah, and the establishment itself is all about never actually making a decision they get in trouble for, having committees, having groups, having a kind of a policy where no one can be accountable, but then that creates a runaway train scenario where then only the most reckless people that are the craziest kind of become the consensus because nobody else wants to challenge them. And through Trump and Elon, saying, hey, we don't want war, we don't want a meat grinder, this is too dangerous, this is crazy, we want to stabilize civilization, we want to have more kids, not less. Every actuary shows we collapse and we don't. Those are conscious. Look at Trump, conscious, awake, sharp. Elon, conscious, aware, sharp. So many others. And then it's a system of kind of quasi-zombies and zombies run by a few kleptocrat, psycho, demon-possessed people
Yo no entiendo nada.
that don't want us waking up the zombies. So that's why they're mad at me. That's why they're mad at you. Is that we are trying to collectively get people to wake up because the wheel on the ship is so heavy and so big, a few of us can't turn it. But if we get more people politically engaged, where together we're able to turn the wheel as we're about to go over this waterfall 5,000 feet and get killed. And so it's people that are dialed in and conscious versus people that are unconscious in the middle versus evil that is driven by a very nihilistic, destructive force. And that's what the transhumanism is about. I mean, I remember 30 years ago reading government white papers that were public that listeners sent me, medical people, that they have human-animal hybrids they can grow in cows for organ harvesting. And of course, that's been admitted for 20 years now. But just last week, hundreds of articles, we can grow humanoids for organ harvesting. Don't worry, though. They don't have consciousness. We've already raised them at undisclosed laboratories. And then it's in the MIT, reports that they've done it. Or I remember 30 years ago, military bases have goats that are part spiders that produce body armor out of their milk, but we don't show them to. And later they brought them out. And then, we have dire wolves living in an undisclosed location where we splice 13,000-year-old DNA with a regular wolf. And my point is, the future's been here for a while, it's just not equally distributed. So you've got this super advanced sectors of technology, literally underground bases and facilities. And you've got an establishment, a very small technocracy that's even aware of those systems.
Yes.
And they don't want to give the general population access to that. So to them, they want a nuclear war. They think it's survivable in their underground bases. And Ian Fleming, former high-level OSS in MI6, wrote the James Bond books and movies. Remember the 80s Moonraker with Roger Moore. And remember, there's a crazy billionaire with these other billionaires with an underground base in Brazil that's going to release a bioweapon on the Earth to kill everybody, but it only goes for a year.
No, ¿qué cambio hice, boludo?
While everybody dies on Earth.
¿Por qué tantas pelotudeces? Cambia una cosa y se le cambia todo, boludo.
The Earth, and he's a eugenicist. Only have the best specimens of the humans to do it. They're in the movie Zardoz with Sean Connery and Logan's Run and The Island. THX-1138, and then you have all this.
No tengo escudo de energía, boludo. Increíble, culiado.
His brother, Julian Huxley, was the head of the World Eugenics Society. When that got a bad name after World War II, they changed to the World Transhumanist Society. He was the Director General of UNESCO, really ran the UN. And his brother, before he died, gave that famous Berkeley speech, it's an hour long. I read his book, Brave New World Revisited, that's nonfiction. Everybody should read it. And he says, no. The world's not going to be like Orwell, SWAT team. That's for the 1% that might resist. The real plan, the reason I could write Brave New World, is this was the consensus of the elite in Europe and England of the world we're going to build, genetically engineered people, a subspecies that serves us, everyone taking soma, everyone's controlled. And he explains in that Berkeley speech, if you don't read the book, he gives a synopsis that this is a real plan that he saw being in place by 2020. And so you have to understand Brave New World is an instruction manual of what they want to do. They want to turn humans into a commodity. That's why Obama calls it the end of history, where there are no more cycles, where everything's controlled, where 90% of the world population is reduced. And maybe if you serve them right or whatever, 10% is here, but there's these gods on Mount Olympus, or these Elysium, demigods that are the technocrats that control everything, and everybody is wired into their brains, and the technocrats control the AI, and then they play God. As Ray Kurzweil said, I don't believe in God yet. I'm going to become one. You all know Harari, I don't believe in God yet, but there will be one in the cloud of AI. And so, I'll just say this, the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray, as the famous scribe said, and these people are prideful, they're satanic, and it's all going to end in disaster. We have to choose God, we have to choose justice, we have to choose free will, and we have to get out of nature more, and we have to disconnect, from the system's lies, and then only go into the systems to basically tell the truth. And just know that if you're fighting evil, evil's going to come after you, but that's a blessing, and that it's very rewarding, and the experiences you have in that quest are the greatest experiences of my life. You find out if it's real, you find out if it's not real. I just see the arrogance of these lawyers. It's warfare. It's lawfare. And through the agencies that are running them. And what they've done to me, they want to do to you. Like Trump said 1,000 times. They're not trying to get me. They got to get through me to get to you. That is true. And so that's why I do want to see action from the White House. I do want to see the Justice Department take action because my case, because they felt like it's free game on me, that it's just open season. They've been more transparent, and it's illegal, in my view, to have the Justice Department funding losses. It's illegal to have the FBI go create these. It's illegal for Obama to list me as a national security terrorist. I've been dragging that for decades. All of this concerted is the stalking. All of this concerted is the racketeering, and that's what it is by definition, conspiracy against rights. And then they're just sitting back laughing and going, oh, Trump, 40 million, to help poor people. We won't be political anymore. We're using it for Alice Jones. It's just, these people need to be called on this. They operate in darkness. They operate because people are too busy. They operate thinking you're never going to figure out what they're doing. And more, they're scared. But I would have thought all this coming out, they would back off. No, instead they've gotten scared. The next Supreme Court, oh, then we're going to hear this. Now they said suddenly they reversed it. No, we're not hearing it now.
Yeah.
Because they think just shut him down, shut him up. It's not going to work if they shut down InfoWars. And I don't throw fights. I'm fighting right to the end. But if they're able to do that and everybody sees that, it's only going to make what I do that much bigger. But again, like when the establishment tried to kill Trump, that's when the establishment went from collapsing to collapse. So their order is over. And I like it as closing Japanese soldiers the last 27 years later, because the Japanese were losing in the Pacific, as you know, Tucker, they would dump soldiers out on islands to frustrate and harass the allies coming in. The U.S., England, and the Australians and the New Zealanders that fought the Pacific War. And so the last guy, 27 years later, was still on an island shooting people and stuff, thinking that he still had to fight for the emperor until he found out, no, the war's been over 27 years. So the radicalized death cult left, the Jacobins, are just running around like chickens with their heads cut off, like zombies. Attack, attack, attack. Everyone's a Nazi. Cutting women off in traffic, getting out, beating up women because they're driving a Tesla, being proud of it. I mean, they have been radicalized to a cult. And that's what Klaus Schwab said. He said, we're going to collapse Western civilization by creating an angrier world. We've got to not target each other. We've got to target the policies and ideas of the globalists and dismantle the policies and have a big tent unified behind stopping nuclear war.
You pray you live long enough to affect good in the world. I definitely pray that for you. Alex Jones, thank you.
Thank you, Tucker, so much. You're the best.
We want to thank you for watching us on Spotify, a company that we use every day. We know the people who run it, good people. While you're here, do us a favor. Hit follow and tap the bell so you never miss an episode. We have real conversations, news, things that actually matter, telling the truth always. You will not miss it if you follow us on Spotify and hit the bell. We appreciate it. Thanks for watching.
No lo toques, déjame que lo voy a modificar. Así como. Sí. Bueno, ven.
Never forget. The problem with never forget is that you can't remember what you don't understand.
That sort of, to me, explains everything. That's, by the way, what we're seeing crumbling. That's why people are so upset about J.D. Vance's speech in Munich. Anything that goes against the open society ideology, if you're against that, you must be for the Holocaust.
Diversity without unity is indistinguishable from chaos. National identity is shared participation in the same stories. The story is everything. And this is why I think we're at the end of the Enlightenment.
The famous tolerance paradox. Buried within there was the seed for a new type of totalitarianism. How can we work out what the correct relationship is with the nation when we can't even identify what the nation is?
We could ask ourselves what's the essence of civilization. It seems to me that the proper story for free societies is
Soy
Hello, everybody. I'm here in Cambridge, in the UK today, at the end of the ARC convention. I have as my guest today Winston Marshall, and I have a long and storied history with Mr. Marshall. I, in part, was in part responsible
¿Qué hiciste con las zapatillas que te regalé?
career because he had the audacity to indicate
¿Cómo?
to the public at large that he didn't think I was entirely despicable, and that didn't go so well for him or for the band, and so that's on me. However, the upshot of that has been that Winston has become a emerging star in the alternative media landscape in the UK,
Gordo, hijo de puta.
which is behind the curve in the alternative media department, but coming on quite strong with people like Constantine Kissen, for example. And Winston's become a very astute, or has shown his ability as a very astute political commentator
Okay, man.
and cultural analyst. And we
No agarré nada, boludo.
our discussion today talking about, well, partly about the conference, the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship Conference, but more as a means of interrogating the relationship between the story that sits at the base of a culture, that necessarily sits at the base of a culture, and that provides people with psychological integrity and social unity, and the political structure that is nested within that. And we delve further into that and discuss the relationship between the presuppositions of Christianity, or more broadly Judeo-Christianity, and the free, abundant, and productive societies of the West, trying to think through the causal relationship between those two, if any, to delineate. And so that's part of an ongoing conversation, you might say, about the reinvigoration of the West on first principles, and something that's of extreme necessity, particularly in the UK and Europe, and perhaps in Canada and Australia as well. The tide has turned to some degree in the US, maybe, but the rest of the West is in relatively dire straits, existentially speaking, and so we spent our time discussing why that is and what conceivably, if anything, might be done about it. So join us for that. So we just spent 3 interesting days, more or less together, or at least in the same environs, in London at the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship, the second convention. 4,200 people as opposed to 1,500. We had people from 90 countries. What do you think?
Well, first, congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you.
It's a great success,
It seemed to be, yes.
which I think only you could have pulled off and put everyone together. Such disparate people from across the world, unified by a common, at least, appreciation that things have gone wrong, even if they don't know. We don't all each know exactly how it's gone wrong. And it was overwhelmingly positive. It was not. There's a problem we've got in our space, I think, is a lot of people trying to take things down, or angry, or anti things. You've actually created an environment that is for something, that is, not just countering, but trying to offer and proffer a positive vision for the future, which we need.
So, part of the problem that conservatives have, perhaps less so classic liberals, is the formulation of a vision. The visionary types tend to tilt in the liberal direction, traditionally, so to speak. And so conservatives do find themselves very frequently playing something approximating a reactionary role. They can see when we've wandered off the path, but aren't very good at specifying what the proper path might be. Okay, so we've noticed some things as we've run these 2 conventions. We've observed our speakers. We've got, 150 speakers across both conventions, and also monitored the social media and network responses to our broadcasts. So, and maybe you can tell me what you think about this. If we invite a politician, regardless of their stature, and they do what you just described, which is to only point out problems, which would often be a critique of the people across the aisle, let's say. Or if they speak in a partisan manner, they disappoint the audience that's there, and they get zero views on social media. It doesn't matter who they are, they can be very well known as politicians.
Kenny Baker, Leaders Conservative Party, actually did that. And what bothered me is she was kind of populist in a pejorative sense in her speech. And as soon as she did that, I was like a bit bothered, because I was like, again, this is the anti, this is the negative, which is not exactly what art is about.
Yeah, when we opened our first convention a year and a half ago, Kevin McCarthy spoke.
¿El vial de qué hay que tener acá? ¿Vial de qué hay que tener acá? De fuego, ¿no?
It was a perfect, fine speech from a political perspective, but it wasn't a good opening to the conference, and it didn't do
Sangrado.
either at the conference or online. We had Kemi and Badnock and Mike Johnson open this time, and Kemi's speech was more political. And although she's very articulate and it was a good political speech, it wasn't as effective, I didn't think, as Mike Johnson's. And Johnson's worked because he stuck to ideas. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to operate at the level of culture, let's say, which is, I think, the right space for conservatives to operate in. We're looking at the preconditions for a civil and free society, trying to sort out what those are. And we've also noticed something on the press side. So if we offer an invitation to religion, and we specify something positive, and we aren't partisan, then the speeches do very well in person. But also, it's very interesting in relationship to press coverage. Mostly, the press has been neutral to us or positive. Both times. There's some exceptions like The Guardian, but, you know, what do you expect from The Guardian? And that's mostly like secondary carping anyways, it's nothing substantive. But it appears that the reason we've escaped from maybe serious protest as well, because there were no protesters.
One or two.
Yeah. A pretty weak showing on the protest front. But I think the reason for that again is that if we're true to our mission and we are offering a positive alternative, then we get something approximating a whole pass, and people are excited about interest. Now, you said that you thought that the conference was very positive. So what do you mean by that exactly?
What I mean is that if you get tugged into the talk wars and the dialogue online, it's all a lot of no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, you're right. And here it was, this is wrong, but here's actually an alternative. Like, this is wrong and this is why it's wrong. Here's a better...
Fuck you!
I'd say I found it interesting with regards to the media and your idea of culture, is that one of the headlines, I think, in the Australian paper was that it's the culture stupid playing on Bill Clinton. And that, I think, is partly because of what you describe, is the culture is upstream from politics. I think as you sort of implying that, the Andrew Breitbart thing. But I would also say, and perhaps this is why some people like this, is that there's been such an attack on our culture for so long, that even being in a place where it's okay to feel like it's, even being in a place where culture is negative, like one's...
Right, just outright, just as you...
Man, no le hace nada de daño, bro.
Exactly.
Which that might be more behind the specific...
No, yo no hago nada de daño.
Nations on the culture. So the mere fact that we can gather together and say, well, there is clearly something here that's not destructive and worth preserving. That's a relief in and of itself.
Exactly.
Right, then we can figure out what it is, which is what we're trying to do.
But that, by the way, I think is really crucial, because I think that there has been a concerted effort since the end of the Second World War to crush our culture. And I think this ties in with populist thing, which I was keen to talk to you about. And a lot of populists will think, or people who frame the populist age, it's sort of over the last 30 years, you look at failed Iraq wars, $1 trillion spent there, the Wall Street 2008, you turbocharged by COVID and failure of elites there. But I think you can actually go back to all the way to the end of the war, and this attack on the culture, which is inspired what I think is the worldwide populist movement, is been deliberately because we learned the wrong lessons at the end of the Second World War. So this is what the writer N.S. Lyons has called the long 20th century, which we're now coming out of.
Sure.
And so at the end of the Second World War, you have writers like Karl Popper writing about the open society, and they create this dichotomy between the open society and closed society. And the motivation is never again, like after the Holocaust. The lesson seems to have been in Europe that these national cultures are wrong. Nationalism is evil, and the continent that's created those were the closed societies, negative, and we need to aim for an open society. And so that